What's up, everybody? I'm Jason Visenberg.
And I'm Michael Visenberg.
Welcome to Viseland.
Yes.
We introduced ourselves by name to start the show. Yay! What's up, everybody?
Finally got it.
I know we're trying, like obviously part of this is always a learning process. So here we are. It's a new year, trying some new things. Obviously, basketball remains the same. Season going strong. Any good feelings so far? I feel like everything's kind of, we've seen some pretty non-competitive games here and there.
Could be good, could be bad.
Yeah.
In the words of Charlie Kelly from Always Sunny.
Yeah, I feel like there's been a few this season with lack of preparation. There've been a few games where it's like not worth the time. But you know what? I will say my bright spot, obviously personally biasly, is Payton Pritchard is getting some playing time, playing all right in the minutes that he's given. Basically telling all the draft Twitter people that didn't like him that he's a decent player so they can leave him alone, hopefully.
You had much stronger words than that, Jason Visenberg. And you're going to be one of those people.
Yes.
You're going to be one of them who, oh, God, Payton Pritchard put up 23 points in like his 8th game. Yeah, God, he's like one of the best players in the draft.
I'm not putting him in the Hall of Fame. I'm penciling him for the All-Star, but no, no, I just
they'll at least make the rookie sophomore challenge that they're not having this year.
No, again, I just didn't like the haterage on somebody that I'm biased towards. So I'm happy that he's getting in there, and obviously with Kemba being out, that's what gets him.
Yeah, it's
that extra. I think it's cool to see him making the most of his minutes because unfortunately our boy Bol is not getting a lot of PT right now in Denver right now, and that is making me very upset.
No, but we got Dylan Brooks. We've got Chris Boucher.
That is true. University
Things are not all bad for Oregon basketball players. Troy Brown also not getting a ton of PT, unfortunately, in Washington. But what I will say about Payton Pritchard is I was a skeptic of his being drafted in the first round. I thought it might have been a little bit too high. So far, definitely surpassed my expectations and has done very well in the minutes that he's been given in Boston. And I felt like draft Twitter as a whole was a little bit too hard on him. Like, I think they kind of went in on him. They kind of did the whole, well, he can't play defense and all he does is take tough shots. I think there was a little more to Payton Pritchard than met the eye. And I guess that's kind of what we're seeing. The other thing that draft Twitter does is they quite often don't necessarily look at all of the off-court stuff and like the fact that Payton Pritchard like works really, really hard. The fact that, working hard on that shooting, and I don't know, like he had a strange shooting profile, Jason. Like you have to admit.
Well, he had a couple years where he struck his sophomore year for sure.
His sophomore year he shot well from 3. His junior year, he was pretty mediocre from 3 on the year. He shot very well near the end of the year. And then his senior year, he just completely went off. But you kind of don't know which sample size to take. And yes, there were some really good players drafted after Payton Pritchard as well. And like, as we well know, being people that have followed the NBA and the NBA draft for years, your rookie season, it's not the end all and it doesn't tell the whole tale. If we looked at Jimmy Butler's rookie season, we would see a guy averaging, I believe, 2.6 points per game, turned into a guy that led a team to the finals last year. So yeah, or was at least a huge part of it with Bam Adebayo, obviously, but still your rookie year doesn't necessarily tell the whole story. And I think that's kind of getting towards the theme of this week's episode as well.
No, totally. I was going to say 100%. I think, rookie years, it's great when you can have some flashes, but, some guys obviously develop at different points. So what are we going to be going through this week just to give everyone, good indication of what they're in for?
So it just seemed like last year's rookies were like, just a few months ago because they were. And this year they are sophomores in the NBA. They have not had a typical offseason to work on.
No summer.
It's definitely not. It's not typical. Yeah, no summer league. Yeah, like just very strange circumstances indeed. But a lot of them have seemed to at least come in quite well prepared. And they did obviously have time, and, they knew what was happening. Like, at least they had a good idea of how this season and off season was going to go. So a lot of them were, of course, putting work in, and a lot of the players we'll mention were in the delete 8, so they didn't even have to go to the bubble.
Yeah, I was gonna say a lot of the higher draft picks from last year, get the benefit of not making the playoffs, so they at least got that extra time. There's only a few players that were gonna, I think, really only one that really played in the playoffs. Yeah.
Well, no, there were a couple. One who had a long run.
But yeah, I was like looking at two players playoffs, but it's like, wow, everyone else got a very long off season.
But yeah, we're just gonna go over some of the sophomores. What I first wanted to do is let's go through the all rookie team from last year. So the two guys who we talked about last week that will leave off this list are Ja Morant, who unfortunately is hurt right now. The Memphis just got a player exception because they have so many players that are hurt. So yeah, we'll leave off Ja Morant, who we talked about in last week's possible future All-Star episode, and Zion Williamson, who we also focused on in last week's episode and have talked about a ton on this podcast. We are a pro Zion podcast. If you don't know,
they've kind of established themselves already. Everyone kind of knows where they're at, where they came from, what they're getting.
So they're the two future All-Stars. And it was considered, like, for the most part, I believe it was considered, you had Zion, you had Ja, you had a third guy, but you had those first two guys above him. And, that was, I think, most people's kind of presumption towards last year. So you had Ja Morant, Rookie of the Year. You had Kendrick Nunn, Brandon Clarke, Zion Williamson, and Eric Pascal as first team All-NBA. Two guys that were senior aged. One guy who was like a super senior, basically, I think he missed a year and then was an NBA rookie. Kendrick Nunn was one of college's leading scorers at the University of Oakland, played at Illinois before then. And so he was, if you can believe this, second in Rookie of the Year voting. Kendrick Nunn. Obviously he played for a good team and started very many games, but come on.
Yeah, well, I mean,
just like you even with Zion's brief playing time, it was very obvious that Zion was a more impactful rookie than Kendrick Nunn. And then Brandon Clarke seemed better to me. I would have had it as Ja, Zion, Brandon Clarke, but people gave more. Zion did get one first place vote, but people gave more votes to Kendrick Nunn for Rookie of the Year. And then on the second team, you had Tyler Herro, Terrence Davis, Coby White, PJ Washington, and Rui Hachimura. And those were your all rookie teams. There were a few guys that were, kind of like senior guys, like you had Terrence Davis. You had a few surprises for sure. Like Terrence Davis obviously being undrafted. Eric Pascal was a second round pick. Kendrick Nunn undrafted. I don't think Brandon Clarke was like a huge surprise or anything, but yeah, just was the 21st pick in the draft. Or was he? Yeah, something around there. 21st. And yeah, so it was like, I guess, generally you're a little bit surprised, but yeah, people knew Brandon Clarke was pretty good. But nonetheless, I think when you look at most all rookie teams, that doesn't necessarily define a draft. Like, there are guys that make the all rookie team and then other guys will surpass them. So yeah, we'll see that with, I think some of these sophomores that we're talking about, and a few of them that didn't make the all rookie team are looking like they're really solid players in their second season.
No, definitely. And like to start with someone who didn't make that all rookie team, was the second pick. Was it third pick in the draft?
Third pick. It was Zion Ja.
Yeah, pretty basic projection, but again, like very, very high pick.
Mm-hmm.
Came in out of from Canada, really, put himself on the international scene for Team Canada in the youth level. goes to Duke. We're talking RJ Barrett.
Yeah. And well, the other thing that RJ did was he played at Montverde and had some great seasons there. He reclassified.
But he also didn't play in that EYBL tournament we went to see because he quote unquote had finals. But then
Yeah.
someone from his school was also there and playing. So it was like,
No, he wasn't. Nembhard wasn't playing.
I thought,
Yeah,
okay,
he
I
was
thought
just
he was there.
there. Yeah.
But either way, he was there. Oh, you said he played-
Nembhard didn't have finals, but he was there. But yeah.
That's weird.
So,
But yeah, other than that,
RJ and Andrew Nembhard are really good friends. Andrew Nembhard, who started off in Florida, currently plays for Gonzaga, played for Montverde. And
you played
as well.
Canada in the EYBL circuit. Playing for UPlay Canada, the EYBL circuit. So that was
yes, they both did.
that was their squad.
Yeah, so RJ was obviously he was like a teen icon in Canada. They knew he was quite good from a very young age. His dad, Barrett Sr., he had a good international career. I believe tried out for the Raptors. He never played in the NBA, but he's been involved with Team Canada for many years and as a player, and then later on as one of the general managers. And so, yeah, he's been very involved with Canada basketball, and Rowan Sr. went to St. John's and was a beast there. And I'd say RJ surpassed his father in height, and then also was just from a very young age, like seemed to be destined to be one of the better players in his high school class. He eventually reclassifies, was considered the number one player in his high school class, goes to Duke, plays with Zion Williamson, plays with Cameron Reddish. So, you had, I think, three, at least, like, I'm pretty sure if you went by RSCI, I think it was like RJ, I think Nas might have been 2, and then Zion 3, Cam 4, something like that. I think Jason's looking it up right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was something along those lines. But RJ was considered one of the favorites to be the first pick in the NBA draft. You immediately saw that Zion Williamson was something very special, and I think people just didn't really know what Zion Williamson was. But RJ was always considered to be like that really good slashing wing, aggressive scorer, really, really strong, and then had nice passing ability as well. So yeah, he came in college.
RJ 1 and RCI, Cam 2, Zion 4. So yeah, they were.
Oh, okay. And Nas was 3?
Yeah.
Okay. Damn. Well, yeah, I'm a little surprised that Cam was over Zion, but yeah, at the time, it was kind of, people didn't see Zion Williamson being what he was. And they kind of didn't know how to define Zion Williamson. He was this really rare combination of ability, and they wondered if he was going to be able to be a big man at his size, and turned out that yes he was. And not to mention the skill set that rivaled even that of RJ Barrett and Cameron Reddish. But yeah, RJ Barrett, I felt, had a very successful college career. A lot of people were kind of saying like, well, he's taking so many more shots than Zion Williamson, and why is this happening? I think that's just kind of a little bit of how he was wired. And yeah, like on Team Canada and on UPlay and even at Montverde, it was always, RJ was just heavily relied upon as a scorer. Had that legendary performance in U19s against Team USA, where he scored 38 points in the semifinals to get Team Canada to the gold medal game, where they eventually won the U19s, and winning Canada men's basketball their first ever gold medal. So RJ, already a legend there, was the leading scorer in the Nike Hoop Summit during his last year as well. Becomes a first-team All-American at Duke. He does have those moments where, while he made I remember he makes the game-winning shot against Central Florida in the NCAA tournament, but also doesn't box out Aubrey Dawkins, as he almost has a game-winning tip-in at the end. A lot of ups and downs. So yeah, people were very high on him still as a prospect. I don't think anybody was too low on RJ, but there were a few concerns, and the main concerns were shooting's always been one. he's just not the most consistent outside shooter, wasn't the most consistent free throw shooter. So you were just kind of wondering how that was going to work. He started off his rookie season really, really cold from the free throw line. And it improved as the year went on to the point where he ends up making a little over 60% of his free throws. The other thing is just while he does get to the basket a lot, the efficiency of finishing at the basket hasn't always been there. And then the three-point shooting was never a huge strength of his, and he didn't shoot exceptionally well at Duke. He does shoot 32% as a rookie, which I was pleasantly surprised by. So that was good.
Half a game, so it's like.
Yeah. Oh, he takes them. Like the thing with RJ is he's like heavily aggressive. So he was still, I think he was one of the leading rookie scorers, but just in terms of efficiency, true shooting percentage, like the analytics and everything backing that up, like he had a net rating that was really low as well. The Knicks were not a good team. And the other thing was the spacing did nothing to really help him. Also, he, I think, had to handle the ball a lot more than you would like him to. While he's very proficient at that and I think he's a very good passer, but he's not a guy that you want as your primary ball handler. And it would be really nice if he played with shooting, he played with spacing. The Knicks didn't have a lot of that, and they still don't. But he's been better this year. Like that's the one thing you'll say about RJ is he's at least started off a little bit better. He's had kind of an inconsistent set of games so far. He's only played a few.
But actually, at this point, he's leading the league in minutes played per game. He's getting 38.
Yeah. Well, his coach is Tom Thibodeau.
No. So he's going to get he gets done. Up in his scoring, he's at 18, 18 a game. Like, I mean, I guess for you, like, where do you feel like RJ ultimately fits in the league? Like,
I think he's like a really good like wing player. Yeah, like a good wing with all-star potential even. But yeah, there are things he definitely needs to work on. And it seems like he's at least addressed some of them. Like he hasn't started off shooting very well from three so far, but it seems like he's shooting a better free throw percentage. He gets to the line quite a bit. He's one of those guys who I think is just going to work on attacking, work on his like kind of being more crafty and creating those advantages to get space. That's kind of been an area where he struggled. He seems to be very willing to take things kind of head on rather than use his craft and kind of create space that some other prospects in that same class who were compared to him were doing those kind of things. But at the same time, it's hard to just look past his production. And I just feel he's really young. I think he's shown some definite strides, and I think he's just going to keep showing that. Now, like you'd like to see a little bit more consistency, because when he's bad, it seems like he's like really bad, and you want more kind of like points per shot or field goal attempt per game. And but yeah, he's had a couple really good games so far, at least 3, and then I would say he's had 4 good games and 3 not so great games. But yeah, he and the Knicks are 4-3, so they're I think a little bit better than you would have thought so far. Julius Randle having a good season, by the way.
And going on a limb though, do you think like for RJ, do you think like the Knicks are like, do you see him as a long-term Knick, or do you think like it's something that he's going to want to move on, or he's going to, probably would fit in somewhere better?
I mean, he would definitely fit in somewhere else, but I think he's going to be a long-term Knick, and you still have to see how the rebuilding plan goes. Like that's the big thing. Like they're still, I think, adding to their team. There going to be some changes there. There's going to be some things moved around, but yeah, it looks like RJ is at least has potential to sign for a big second contract. Now he's going to be a guy who I think a lot of people are going to be wondering about whether he's the right person for the big second contract, but it seems like he's at least on that like positive progression, And yeah, I'm just expecting a good second season from him. And yeah, he's going to play a ton of minutes. They're going to need him. And he has looked good in a few games so far and had some of his usual struggles with, the cold shooting, the finishing at the rim. But yeah, I still feel like he's a guy that I know is going to put in tons of work. Like the work ethic with him was always something that was a very big positive. He was seen as a good character guy as well. So yeah, I think RJ is a guy who is genuinely if I see him being a team player and if they do get a high draft pick this coming year, which as New York always hopes to finally get that 1 or 2 pick, then yeah, there could be really good things coming for RJ Barrett. But yeah, it just seems so far it's a positive progression. I know he was really disappointed about not making an all rookie team. And yeah, I think, he was definitely one of the last few guys left off that team, but yeah, positive progression. And I like where things are going for RJ so far.
I kind of like the idea actually of him, kind of staying with the Knicks as well, having hopefully flourishing a little bit and kind of having a little competition with his godfather, Steve Nash, across town. Having some good games, kind of competing with Brooklyn. I mean, not hypothetical, but
yeah, I'd say they still need pieces for that.
Totally. I think in the playoff sense, yes, but I think and some regular season games he could do some things. But moving on, we got Darius Garland coming in at Cleveland, coming out of Vanderbilt. I know he had some injury at Vanderbilt.
Yes.
But, I know there was definitely a lot of faith in him last year, especially because, being a rookie, being a point guard, coming into Cleveland where it's basically open court. You get the chance to kind of have the ball in your hand. How are you feeling about how he performed as a rookie and kind of how you're projecting him, as a sophomore sort of moving forward?
So yeah, he had a torn meniscus, so ended his college career early at Vanderbilt. Coming up through EYBL and he was one of the standouts at the Nike Hoop Summit as well. Considered one of the top point guards coming into college last year. And after a year where Trae Young dominated college basketball, people were like, well, this guy might be the closest thing to Trae Young. I don't think it would have gotten there, but he only played, I believe, 5 college games, and he looked good. Yeah, he looked good. He didn't necessarily have the passing ability of a Trae Young, but the guy can really shoot the ball and create space, and then is just this huge pull-up threat. Tiny, so you were hoping that he would gain a little strength to be able to finish better near the basket. And it looks, at least so far this year, like he's kind of done it. With Cleveland last year, it is funny how they just didn't really have that main distributor between he and Colin Sexton, who they have hilariously nicknamed Sexland as a duo. But yeah, so far they've looked a lot better than I think people thought, and they've at least been quite a bit of fun. And Darius has gotten off to a really good start shooting the ball this year. Always that pull-up threat, but also really good off of the catch as well. He's shooting an unsustainable level from the three-point line. He's shooting 47%.
Okay, yeah, no, definitely on a smaller sample size at this point. But I mean, he's taking five a game.
Yeah. But yeah, he's also finished better around the basket, because that he really struggled doing that as a rookie. And then he's improved that assist to turnover ratio. Yeah, it just seemed last year, I think he had quite a few struggles, as Cleveland was one of the worst teams in the league as well. And yeah, you were just kind of wondering, while he was certainly scoring in double digits, he wasn't doing it crazy efficiently. He's always shot really well from the free throw line, but never gets there. So that's the other thing that you'd like to see him do a little bit more. And I think that added strength is really going to help. And it seems like he at least is working on his body, adding a little bit of strength, and the shot seems to be coming along. The game seems to be slowing down a little bit for him. So yeah, another really good start to his sophomore season. And yeah, you have to say that it's a positive progression for a player that still went 5th in the draft.
Yeah, and RSCI he was 15, so it's always kind of those interesting things where it's like recruiting, then college, and like they get a lot higher. I mean, it totally happens, but no, definitely he's up his assists to 6.3. So like, how do you feel as far as like what his kind of trajectory looks like? Like, where do you see him sort of in 4 or 5 years, like as a role?
You'd like to see him being like, I think, I don't know. I also kind of envision him playing next to like maybe like a bigger ball handler. I think that would be the best move, like, because I'm not completely sold on him as being that primary handler or the point guard of the future. But I think playing like off of another efficient scorer. I think the Cleveland vision of it was them being the new like Lillard and McCollum. And I think there are certainly like some similarities there. If Garland's working at his peak, where he could be kind of like that CJ McCollum sort of guy, a little bit smaller, but yeah, he still had a little bit of length, I guess. And CJ, I'm guessing like when he was likely Darius Garland's age, probably was around the same relative dimensions. But yeah, you just, it would be great if he was playing with like a bigger ball handler and just providing that shooting spark, and with the ability to break things down off the pull-up game as well.
One, the possible good news for Cleveland is they're going to get some high picks coming their direction. So they'll definitely be able to bring in some people via the draft.
Yeah, like Cade Cunningham, I think is somebody who would work very well there with the smaller guards. And even one guy I want to mention who unfortunately hasn't played so far this year is Kevin Porter Jr., who I thought had a really good rookie year for Cleveland and was very much looking forward to as a sophomore. We're hoping that he eventually comes in and plays for them as well. But yeah, Darius Garland right now is, I think, looking quite good, and it's somebody that Cleveland has to be pretty happy about so far in the early season.
Nice, awesome. Well, moving on, we got our first University of Kentucky. We're talking Keldon Johnson, San Antonio Spurs.
Keldon Johnson.
Pop definitely. Popovich knows how to develop his players.
Yeah. So it was funny because, oh, sorry, Jason.
I was gonna say the roster is going to be, starting to, be in a transition period too, in San Antonio quite a bit.
For sure. And yeah, Keldon was somebody that I was lucky enough to see a few times in high school, and he always stood out. Like he always had that scoring ability. And the thing that was impressive to me was his ability to score through contact. Granted, I saw him at the Les Schwab Invitational, so wasn't necessarily playing the best competition, but comes in, had been awake, I think, for 38 hours straight. And like, it was a hell of a flight for him to get there, and comes in and doesn't miss a beat. I think scored 28 points in his first game against a team that was well overmatched, but looked very good. And it wasn't just doing it in the paint, like, was also showing some outside shooting. And I felt Keldon Johnson throughout the whole entire tournament was being refereed different than everybody else. The guy kept getting hit over and over again, did not bother him, and still was able to score through that contact. So yeah, I was always really impressed with his strength, his scoring ability, his balance as a shooter, and just thought that he had some really nice scoring instincts. And also, like, with that strength, kind of the ability to play either forward spot, and then his handle isn't anything to write home about, but he's a guy that you could play on the wing. Always moved pretty well laterally, also to play defense on the wing. I think one of the famous things with him was at the end of the McDonald's All-American game, he was guarding RJ Barrett and did a really good job there. So yeah, he has a solid, not spectacular year at Kentucky. Shoots pretty well from three on not like a giant sample size. He does get to the line like a decent amount, but nothing really to write home about. But coming into the year, I thought he was like kind of like a top 10, 15 guy. And then it turns out that the NBA, I even feel like around the draft, like a lot of people probably had him in the mid first round range. And San Antonio actually takes Luka Semenic over Keldon Johnson. So they take Luka at 19 and they take Keldon at 29. And so far, he had a really good end to his rookie season and played well in the bubble too. And then he has been their starting, like one of their starting wings this year and is off to a really solid start.
Yeah, no, he's getting 16 points a game, 7.5 rebounds. So, I mean, that's a pretty, especially because you look like Rudy Gay is probably on the way out. Also, DeMar DeRozan, like, I don't know how much time is going to be left there between San Antonio and DeMar. So, like, what are your, projections as far as, how you see the next, few years playing out for him?
Yeah, it's hard to say, but he's looking like a good wing for them right now, and at the very least, like a solid role player, shooting really well. So that's a very positive indicator for him, and just being strong on both ends of the floor. So yeah, like you wouldn't call him a 3-and-D wing. He's still kind of more of like that scoring slasher, off ball guy rather than like a 3-point specialist. But he's shooting really well from the 3-point line. And I think playing good defense and providing some versatility. So, yeah, he looks like a real winner at forward for the Spurs and another really good pick for them.
Yeah, you're talking about getting that value of like 29th pick. Out of the Spurs, you're getting someone who's, going to be contributing at least like fit in a role.
He and DeJounte like on those late picks. And then Derek White too. Yeah. So they found a few really good ones.
Yeah, they have like an interesting young group. Mm-hmm. And no one was like, a super insane high pick, but yeah, they're all guys that can, really bring something. So it's like, it'll be interesting to see what the next few years for San Antonio hold. Well, Popovich continues to stay because obviously oldest NBA coach, I believe, of all time. But I think, they kind of have that.
All time?
Yeah, I think they said that. He's pretty old. He's like not very young. It's not.
Yeah, true. But damn, I didn't realize all time.
Yeah, he's 71.
Yeah.
And I mean,
Coach K immortal?
Red Auerbach looked like he was 71, but he lived another 30 plus, 30-ish years after the 60s. So you never know. But yeah, San Antonio always
like Frank Layden or one of those guys. Like
Frank Layden didn't.
Bill Fitch.
Bill Fitch was pretty old. Yeah, he was coaching with. That's for the people listening to listening or watching the show. If you know a coach that you think was super old in the NBA, drop us a line. Let us know. It's a good comment because there's a few. But I believe I did read that about Popovich. He's like the oldest active coach. But yeah, it's not a lot of people doing it into their 70s.
I'm guessing active. Yeah, I don't think he's oldest of all time.
Yeah, I'll do some more research.
Jason, you need to back that up, man. Must.
As Popovich himself would say, maybe fake news, but we will see. But yeah, moving on, we got DeAndre Hunter, Atlanta, coming out of UVA.
Yeah, and he was the 4th pick in the 2019 NBA draft.
Coming in at 22 as well. So he's an older, again, like that trend is always like those, 1 or 2 year kind of college guys.
Well, funny you should mention that, Jason, because he was a 2-year college guy. But he was a red shirt and I think was a little old for class even as a red shirt. So yeah, that was the reason he was a little bit older. Kind of like a little bit of an Obi Toppin vibe going on there. But DeAndre Hunter was very important. First off, he was a top 70 or so high school player. So he was considered like a pretty good recruit for Virginia under that Tony Bennett program, who wasn't necessarily getting like McDonald's All-Americans consistently. So I think he was one of the higher ranked recruits that Bennett had gotten. but he redshirted. I don't know if it was because of injury, but I think that could have played a part. And then he got hurt at the end of his redshirt freshman year. And that, I think, I wouldn't say that's the reason that they lost to UMBC, but it didn't help. Like, he was a pretty important player to that team. And a 1 usually wouldn't lose to a 16.
Shout out to golden retrievers. They were like a golden retriever themselves. They saw something that they wanted and they went out to fetch it.
I think they just kind of shed it all over the place, and they and Virginia was allergic.
UVA could have been allergic.
Yeah,
I don't know, but shout out to the golden retrievers. We will never forget.
The one guy who wasn't allergic to golden retrievers turned out to be DeAndre Hunter. But yeah, we'll. So his freshman year, showing some really good flashes. He was considered one of the top returning players in college, and he has a really good sophomore season at college. One of the better players in the ACC. Considered, like, I would say, so he was a third-team consensus All-American, and yeah, he was. I thought really solid. The one thing that was, and I think this is part of the pack line too, but people kind of pointed to the fact that while he was a good on-ball defender, he had low stock numbers and he had low, so stock numbers is what I think people pointed to, like the fact that his block and steal percentages were both pretty low. He was older for class. But still very solid, like has a really solid defensive outing throughout the NCAA tournament and throughout the year, but particularly against Jarrett Culver in the NCAA finals, and Virginia wins the NCAA tournament. So DeAndre Hunter considered one of those top guys, and the Pelicans, the Lakers trade the Pelicans that 4th pick, the Pelicans trade back, and they trade with Atlanta. And so far, Hunter started a majority of games for Atlanta, had like kind of like a so-so rookie season, and as you see, like doesn't make an all-rookie team. But he just didn't really set the world on fire, wasn't necessarily like the most efficient from the field. It seems like he's been a lot better this year, and I think almost works better as like a 4 as opposed to a 3. I think he's gotten stronger, and
you still have Cam Reddish too, in that same as a kind of a small 4. So it's kind of an interesting.
Yeah, they were the 4 and 10 pick, and they've been starting most of the games for Atlanta. Well, I think Hunter started every game. He's done a lot better shooting this year. I think he's much more comfortable off the bounce as well. So that was a big thing for him also. So yeah, I think has just been a lot more reliable as a shooter, has gotten stronger, has become a better decision maker as well. So yeah, he's had a really strong start to his sophomore campaign. Cam Reddish, I think between the two of them, I think people were higher on Cam as a rookie, and Cam of course is still quite a bit younger, at least around a couple years. But yeah, it looks like they have 2 really solid forwards in those guys. Cam, of course, being more of a wing, and DeAndre being that kind of combo forward. But yeah, it seems like he's been a lot more close to being worthy of that 4th pick in the draft. I'm not sure many people would still take him with the 4th pick if all things were said and done, but he it just seems like a really solid contributor for Atlanta so far.
Nice. And yeah, like how do you kind of project him as more of that kind of combo 3-4?
Yeah. I see him as that combo forward. You're hoping that he shoots, you're hoping that he plays some good defense. And if the decision making keeps getting better, then that's just gravy.
Yeah, and Atlanta's like, again, like a young team. They're still not probably super distant playoff going team, but I think like with Trae Young there, I mean it's pretty interesting.
Hey, if they get there, that's
I know. Like with Trae Young, I think like with his ability, I think it'll be interesting to see like having those kind of role players like a DeAndre Hunter in the playoffs. Like I think those are going to be good potential just to really build around. around Trae Young, what he's bringing. Moving on, we got somebody we actually just, as of this recording, the Portland Trail Blazers had just, well, I don't even know how to say it politely, just played really stupidly towards the end of a game and lost to the Chicago Bulls with this point guard of Coby White from North Carolina, somebody that Michael and I, we had the privilege of seeing years ago again at the EYBL.
Yes.
In Los Angeles. We also saw him at In-N-Out Burger following. He spilled his soda everywhere. It was a pretty, I feel like for me and him, that was a bonding moment of time. And I hope he would still remember me from that, but maybe he didn't. And I'd forgive him for that. But yeah, ever since that moment, we had that bond. So I've liked Coby White. I followed him.
Yeah. Spill soda. You used to call him Spill Soda, and I'm sure he really appreciated it. He's, I feel, grown a lot in maturity and physically since then. He now is like, I think if he's not 6'5", he's like at least a solid 6'4". I don't even think he was that at the time.
No, he was a little, he was like, maybe 6, like he was like 6'4". Yeah, it's a pretty big, good point guard size.
He always had the hair.
Oh, for sure.
The hair always
that has been consistent, but
yeah. So Coby just was one of those guys who, it was a bucket like that. That was I think what you would call him in high school. He was a bucket. He was a scorer, and
on his Chris Paul, like his CP3 elite or whatever that team was. Like, yeah, the team moved with him. Like, I mean, he was running everything.
Yeah, he was seen more, I think, as a combo guard than a point guard. And I think there's still some of that, but I think at North Carolina, he showed at least a bit more ability to be that decision maker. Now, he didn't necessarily like crush it or anything. Like, he still was, I'd say the assisted turnover left a little to be desired and just his decision making in general. But yeah, I felt like he had a really solid freshman year in college, especially if you compare it to the last couple highly ranked UNC point guards that went in there. If you compare Coby's body of work to theirs, I think you have to give him a lot of credit. And he was considered, I think, the kind of like second banana freshman, obviously, with Nas Little being the second ranked or the third ranked guy in the RCI. Coby was, I'm assuming, somewhere in the 20s, I'm thinking.
Yeah, he was 20, he's 27.
Boom. So yeah, I should have been higher, but yeah, he seemed like a legit McDonald's All-American level guy, and he did make the McDonald's All-American team, if I do recall. And he, I thought, had a really solid freshman year in a draft where you were kind of looking for players to rank highly in that draft. Like, it wasn't easy to have guys near the top of the board. Coby was up there for me. And I think I either had him like 5 or 6. And after my top 4 was definitely Zion RJ, Jarrett Culver. And yeah, I think Ja obviously should have been number 2, but yeah, I still was an RJ believer. But yeah, so Coby was one of the more interesting players in that draft to me. Just thought there was a lot of speed, ability to score from every level. And as a rookie, he had flashes. Like, he certainly wasn't the most efficient player. And even as a sophomore, he hasn't been incredibly efficient so far either, but still shooting like a pretty solid clip from the 3-point line on a nice volume. He's definitely upped his assist numbers this year, but still, you'd like to see
a better ratio. Well, so they've kind of gone a little hand in hand there, but
yeah. And he, yeah, obviously it's not like the best situation for him in Chicago, but yeah, he started 1 game last season, and he was just near the end of the season was having these like huge scoring outputs. And it seems like he can at least get buckets in the NBA. He's not a guy that you want running your team, but he's, again, like that kind of combo guard and then just a really solid shooter. And you're hoping for maybe a little bit more out of him in pick and roll. But yeah, like Coby is looking like a bucket and looking like a solid scorer, like a kind of one of those volume scorers on a team with again, you're hoping with either like a really good point guard next to him or a jumbo initiator.
Yeah, I think like that's the hard part for Chicago because like he and Zach LaVine, I think like maybe a different point guard or kind of again like that player for him. But yeah, like I think he's proven that he can have some scoring impact. I think like again like defensive statistics aren't jumping off the chart right now either. But I mean that could be also indicative of Chicago and what's going on there. But I definitely think like he'll be a starting guard in the league for the next foreseeable future for sure. I think scoring will go up, but yeah, you'd love to see just a couple things tied together to really just take it to the next level again, like decision making, turnover, cutting down on the turnovers.
Yeah, and then just finishing better inside the 3-point arc.
No, definitely. But yeah, I think he's a great kid, and yeah, it'll be interesting to see because I think again Chicago's still a little ways away from postseason impact. So like that'll kind of define the trajectory of his career if he doesn't get to the postseason versus if he does and kind of adapts to that like slower postseason sort of style. But someone who did play super well in the postseason was the next player we're going to talk about here, and that is one of the youngest players to do whatever the heck he did in the finals. That is Tyler Herro.
Yeah, he was young, that's for sure. He was another guy who was just always a bucket, fantastic shooter. I got to see him for the first time live at Adidas Nations in 2016. And I believe he was heading into his sophomore or junior season. He was one of the better players on a team that really struggled. It was like an underclassmen team, and I remember the two best players on the team were he and Matt Hurt for Duke. And Tyler, just throughout like I got to see him at USA Basketball. I got to see him at Hoop Summit, and I'll be honest, I didn't really see it. I wasn't really blown away. I saw that he could shoot. He was at least a decent handler. Like he was like, I saw like the whole like more than a shooter thing, but to me, he just didn't really like stand out athletically, and he wasn't necessarily like shooting enough. And I didn't see the great playmaking skills or anything like that. At Kentucky, I think he showed a bit more of that. It was funny because he was originally committed to Wisconsin and then flipped and committed to Kentucky. He was very crucial for Kentucky that year. And it was a big get for Cal. And I think also like the whole Cal hides players kind of thing went with Tyler Herro as well. Because now the fact that he went 14 in the draft, people were like saying that Tyler should maybe be like a top 10 or top 5 guy, and still yet to be seen. But he obviously is off to a really good start. So yeah, he's a guy who I think absolutely has and likely will outplay his draft position. The fact that he played good minutes for a team that went to the NBA Finals, played a fantastic series against Boston. Like I just think overall against Boston was really, really good. In the NBA Finals had a couple okay games, but it was the NBA Finals, and he was pretty much overmatched for the most part. But the thing with Tyler is he does have that ball handling ability, the ability to make pull-up shots, the ability to catch, make shots off movement. He is a good passer as well. So yeah, and then defensively, he definitely tries. He's not like out of this world or anything like that. And he has like, the chalk or negative wingspan, but he's big enough where like he and Coby actually are like very similar in terms of like height and wingspan. But yeah, it doesn't really matter for Herro, and he's like a really good wing guard who even has like some, I guess, like tertiary or I think at his height, maybe like secondary playmaking skills.
Yeah, I think like he's kind of an exciting player, but yeah, I don't think obviously not like the primary primary ball handler. And he's one of those guys that, yeah, I think popularity wise, culture fit, he's found a good, I think Miami fits him very well, the way he played, and he kind of seems to have sort of embraced it. So yeah, hopefully he, sticks around that, and they can hopefully with Bam, with Jimmy, they can hopefully make another good playoff run. Because Herro, like, going Dragic going out, like there's good opportunities for him to get some solid playing time for the Heat.
Oh, and well, the other thing is that even like, while I'm sure they would love to see how it plays out, he's a guy that's turned into a really good trade chip too. So, if you're looking for like that second star or like I guess the third star, but if you're going to make a James Harden trade, you're likely going to have to center it around Tyler Herro. And yeah, I have a feeling that he's going to be in Miami for quite a while. But yeah, certainly he's become a really good trade chip as well. He's a guy that a lot of teams can use, just being that shooter and having the absurd confidence that he had as a rookie, taking those big shots, and then just his shot making ability is very impressive. Does not get to the line a lot either, but is another guy that's going to make tons of free throws, if you put him there. So yeah, his potential to be like that high volume 3-point shooter, and then also shot creation as well, like off pull up, it's a really good thing. And the fact that Miami has two movement shooters of his level and Duncan Robinson, definitely I think was a huge part of what made them so dangerous last year in the playoffs.
No, definitely. That run that was unexpected, definitely unexpected, but now that they did it, it's like, I hope Jimmy can do it again and take them to the finals. But yeah, so he's the first player that we've actually mentioned today that did go to the playoffs. So actually played in the playoffs, played in the finals. And then the next guy we're mentioning is the second player that were on this list that went to the finals. And this is obviously somebody that people weren't expecting to necessarily probably play a ton last year. Started off on a 2-way contract, undrafted. We're talking Luguentz Dort from Arizona State via Montreal, Canada.
Yeah.
And really, really, like he kind of had like he staked a good role for himself defensively, is what obviously kept him on the floor. Offensively left a little bit to be desired. Like, because he had the one shot that made James Harden look like an all-star defender when James Harden blocked that shot at the end of the game. So I think like he's one of those guys, like you look at him and you look at the way he plays and you like want him to be a good shooter, but it's just not in his wheelhouse at this moment.
Yeah, he hasn't gotten there yet, but I think he's vastly improved. And like right now he is shooting 45% on 2.3 3-point makes a game. He's always shot pretty well from the line in the NBA so far. I think even at Arizona State, he was pretty good. I got to see Lou as I guess he was a sophomore and junior. He was at Adidas Nations both the years that I went in 2015 and 2016. In 2016, he was one of the key players for Team Canada that got all the way to the finals, that got, I think, rocked by, I believe it was Team Harden that had an absolutely stacked squad. But yeah, Luguentz is just this guy who always had an incredibly strong body, and the MVP of the high school camp when at Adidas Nations when I was there that first year was Raleigh Alkins, who strong player for Arizona, has gotten, I think, a little bit of NBA burn, or has at least been in training camps, will have a pro career. But yeah, like a guy who is like 6'3", 6'4", has that 6'8" wingspan and just really, really solid. And Lou was that. He was really aggressive, not amazing at finishing around the basket, but certainly could get there and get fouled, and tried really hard. He was, I guess, kind of like billed as a point guard, but always seemed to be better prepared for being off ball.
Yeah, I don't think that's coming back. Like, yeah. Kind of in that two range. Like, I don't think anyone's given him solid run as a guard. Like that was
sure. He's a wing.
Yeah,
he's a wing. He's a slasher. He's a guy that you hope shoots. He was invited to the Hoop Summit as a late injury replacement, and I just remember he shot absolutely horribly for the most part, but like on obviously fewer reps than everybody else, very last minute. It was really cool because Canada had 5 players in the game. It was RJ Barrett, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Lindell Wigginton, and then Dort came in at the last minute. The fact that he went undrafted was a little surprising. I think part of it was him just saying that, if he kind of wanted to fight for a contract. His contract is puzzling because the contract that they end up signing has team options these next 2 years for basically veteran minimum, whereas you feel like Lou would rather have had that second round contract where he had the option.
Yeah, I think he's earned a role.
Yeah. Which is why his contract is so puzzling, where he makes 1.7 this year and then will make the same amount for probably the next 2 seasons. So yeah, you're thinking that he would have liked to cash in on that sooner, but the fact that he got to sign the long-term contract, he was, I think, originally on the 2-way and then played well enough where he eventually got into Oklahoma City starting lineup, at least the rotation, and then in the playoffs was playing heavy minutes in a 7-game series, had that huge game 7 where I think he had 30 points. But yeah, obviously that last play, I always said he was the last guy I would want the ball.
No, totally. And fact that when James Harden gets up and makes a rejection, you're like, yeah.
Well, yeah.
Obviously he's focused on the last play of the game.
but yeah, what Lou does is he does nothing off of the pull-up. It's all off of the catch, all off of slashing, all off of cutting, all off of hustle. And yeah, so just if he can improve his ball handling a bit, I think that would be very key for him. But the fact is that he's getting minutes. The Thunder have at least kept things competitive. They're going to be one of the worst teams in the NBA. I would think they are the favorite to be the worst team in the Western Conference. But Lou's getting minutes, and I think he's at least carving a really good role for himself with his work ethic and with the fact that, he adds on the defensive end and has been better on the offensive end so far. His start to the season is really impressive. Whether he keeps that up is yet to be determined, but yeah, good start to the year. And it seems like things have at least been going in the right direction for him in terms of giving at least more offensive productivity.
Yeah, no, I think the defense is his role, and you see him as that kind of scrappy guy you bring off the bench to really piss off the lead part on the other team, and I think that's where his ultimate kind of career trajectory is, and it's anything he can add offensively is a nice bonus. But yeah, it's cool to see him because he's got this interesting size. He is 6'3", 6'4", 220. He's a pretty big dude who's got that quickness, but yeah, just putting the shot together would be super awesome. But
sure.
Also awesome to again see someone like that just carve out a role.
Montreal, baby.
Yeah. And then someone else that kind of carved out a role last year that people were surprised that he went where he did in the draft, and that's Cameron Johnson.
Yeah.
From North Carolina via Pitt.
He was surprising for I would say a number of reasons. One thing that Cameron Johnson, I think, had everybody in his corner on was he was maybe, at least I viewed him, and I think a lot of other people viewed him as the best shooting prospect in the draft. So people knew he had one skill that was definitely going to be an asset. It was just about his defense, his age, and there were injury concerns with him too. He had a lot of injuries. I think he was at least possible that he was flagged for injuries, but so far he came in. He started off at Pittsburgh and was really intriguing there. And I remember reading about him kind of killing it in the pro-ams there. He got hurt as a freshman, so got a redshirt year, played a couple years at Pitt, transfers to North Carolina, and is immediately eligible.
Yeah, I think he graduated. I think it was a grad transfer situation. I believe.
No, he had 2 years at UNC.
I know, but it's possible to still do it with 2 years, I think.
Oh, like a grad transfer? Okay.
Yeah, like you have a degree or whatever. Because I remember, I vaguely recall, I mean, Oregon had talked to him.
Yeah.
For a moment, obviously nothing serious came out.
Yeah, his ability to shoot off of like a number of different situations was what made him very intriguing. Not to mention that he has pretty good size. Like I remember at the combine, he's another guy who didn't have like a huge wingspan, and his standing reach was weird considering his size. But he was at least like a strong enough player, and I guess people shouldn't have been like completely surprised that he at least had a pretty immediate impact for the Suns. Seeing the fact that he was, like a senior and kind of one of the guys who was like more ready to come in and play. I think people were just surprised at how well the Suns did with him, and the role that he gave is kind of like, because I believe through the 8-game win streak in the bubble, they started Mikal Bridges and Cam, and they worked really well as a duo. And like, I think Cam's defense, he always, I think, played like pretty good team defense. So yeah, he was just a guy who was, I think, more of a plug and play than people really thought. And 11 still could be an overdraft for him, like just considering the guys that were on the board. But he's not a guy that I think Phoenix is really disappointed in so far. And there's at least a chance that it's a decent pick. And he's been good so far. So it's hard to be too disappointed considering with the fact that Cam has been like a really nice role player, one of those combo forward kind of guys, and providing the shooting that you want. And then I think being a little bit more of an athlete and a defender than people had really expected him to be.
Yeah, I think like his role in Phoenix is, like he's a kind of a stretch the floor guy, which like with Chris Paul, Devin Booker, like all of that works out super well in his favor. Just he's going to have these other guys doing a lot of activity. He's going to be standing out there ready to catch and shoot.
Yeah, he's like already been a high volume, high efficiency 3-point shooter, which as a rookie is really impressive. And then in his second year, he's keeping it up and even upping his 3-point attempts. So yeah, Cam at least looks like a really nice pick. And if he had went much lower, I think it would have been kind of a steal.
Yeah, but it's funny because we still remember when you look at that draft, he was drafted there, and then they're interviewing Coby White. He'd already gotten picked, and they told him that Cam went 11, and like Coby White was like so happy and proud of his teammate.
Well, surprised too, though, right?
Yeah, super surprised, because again, that was not the trajectory there, and then again, but some of these teams they definitely know what they're doing, and I think to plug him into Phoenix, like he's in a very good situation right now, because I think Phoenix is right now they're tied for second, or they're second in the Western Conference, but I mean, still we're very early in the regular season, but again, like I think they are going to make the playoffs. I don't think Chris Paul likes not making the playoffs. I think Devin Booker had them so close last year too. It's like it's happening, and I think he's going to have a good chance to really make some impactful plays.
Yeah, it seems like Phoenix has done really, really well so far, and they've just it's great to see. Like, it's just really nice for that franchise, and to see them back being competitive and have Devin Booker having a chance to make the playoffs and getting a chance to play next to a point guard like Chris Paul. The next player that we'll talk about is a guy that I felt like maybe Phoenix should have taken and did make an all-rookie team. And he was somebody that I will admit I was a little lower on as a freshman. I almost like kind of wrote him off as a freshman. I shouldn't have. He it has always had at least there have been skills there, and that's PJ Washington. PJ Washington played for Findlay Prep. He's originally from Texas, but played for Findlay Prep his last couple of years. His dad was the coach at Findlay Prep as well, Paul Washington Sr. PJ is about 6'8", but he has like this crazy like 7'2", 7'3" wingspan. wanted to be, I think, like a combo forward, but he certainly like had some skills there too. So like he was trying to bring the ball up, and he at least had that handle. Showed a lot better shooting once he got into his senior season. And at Kentucky too, like, you know, he didn't shoot out of this world, but at least was showing the ability to shoot from long range. And then was always like a really good passer as well. I think where he really excelled was once he like realized that he was this kind of big guy, and that was a role that he could play in the NBA. And I think with Charlotte, he's getting the chance to kind of be like this 4-5, and I think that is where he really excels. So the other thing is that once he's got to the NBA, he has become a pretty consistent long range shooter. And in his first NBA game, I think he hit like something like he hit a ridiculous amount of threes. I remember in his first NBA game, 7 threes.
Yeah,
in his first NBA game.
Having a few games, like so we had a few games. I remember.
Yeah, 37% 3-point shooter as a rookie, and makes the all rookie second team, much deserved. He hasn't gotten off to necessarily the best start this year, but I think is still going to be a valuable player for Charlotte, and is somebody that I think I ended up having him somewhere in like, I at least thought he was like top 10 range, and he was one of my favorite players in the 2019 draft, and I thought he would have been a great pick for Phoenix, as I felt like they kind of like needed that combo big. And I thought he would look really good next to DeAndre Ayton. Like my two picks for Phoenix would have been either Washington or Brandon Clarke. And while Cam Johnson looks very solid, I wouldn't be surprised if PJ Washington ends up being the better NBA player in the long run. But yeah, so far he's hasn't necessarily like killed it in his sophomore season, but very early in the year.
And Charlotte's still figuring out a ton too, and his minutes are actually down this year.
Yeah.
So it's like that kind of goes into factor. So like his stats are like relatively similar given the fact he's playing about.
Yeah, his per minute numbers are better. Yeah.
But also full disclosure.
But yeah, he's shooting a lower percentage from 2 so far as well. Like yeah, I guess his true shooting percentage is at a not so great rate right now, but very early in the year, and yeah, hopefully he figures it out, and I think he should. Definitely was one of my favorite players in that draft class.
Yeah, I saw him. He was eating a lot at the Tender Greens near my office in Westwood, California.
Good.
So that's always a good sign when hanging out in the Westwood. No, he seems like a super, like from the times I've seen him, always seems like a super nice guy. But yeah, he's a big dude.
Yeah.
Like, so he's got a
big, strong, really good athlete.
He's got a good size for a four to, be able to get inside, and then, the fact that he pose a little
modern day stretch forward, baby.
Yeah, which is nice. So yeah, hopefully, again, he's probably, I don't know what Charlotte's, long-term trajectory is. So he might be someone that, hopefully finds maybe another situation and hopefully can.
I don't know. I think he's somebody that Charlotte's going to want to keep for the long run. Yeah, he's a piece. I think he's a piece.
Well, the final guy that we have is another person that is in that 4 range. You've talked about him before. That is Canada's own Brandon Clarke out of Gonzaga.
Canada's own.
I know,
yeah, he moved from Canada when he was 3 years old, but still born in Canada, and we are hoping will play for Team Canada in the future.
No, 100. Again, my claim is very minimal. I don't need a lot. I just need that he was from there. Like I count Amari Stoudemire as a Jewish basketball player. So
yeah,
that's how accepting I am to really just bring anybody in by association.
You're kind of like a Kyle Wiltshire level Canadian.
Yes, correct. 100%. Kyle Wiltshire, totally. Born in
Portland. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Dad was from Canada, so that's cool.
He went there on spring break. I fully embrace him playing for the team. He can wear the jersey. That's fine. But Brandon Clarke, someone came, out of Gonzaga, again, like not the youngest rookie coming in at 23, but he's definitely someone that offers a lot on the court.
Yeah, he was a spectacular college player, and his last year at Gonzaga, he played his first 2 seasons. I don't know much about Brandon Clarke as a high school player. I know that he played high school in Arizona, but yeah, his last 2 seasons, or his first 2 seasons, he plays at San Jose State and is seen as like, this guy whose defensive numbers kind of jump off of the page, really good rebounder, has like ridiculous athleticism, just crazy bounce, but like this kind of small center with short arms. But then he gets to Gonzaga, and yeah, he's freakish. Like his touch is crazy around the basket. His ability to get off of the floor is like, I think, second only in the draft to Zion Williamson. He just has like this crazy vertical ability. I just saw like he had this play today in Memphis's game against the Lakers. And this is something that he does on a consistent basis, where he just like rose up and had this fantastic dunk. So was a guy that got tons of dunks and then showed like some great passing acumen also. So he was a good passer. And then he was, I think, second in the NCAA in box plus minus behind Zion Williamson, had one of the higher box plus minuses on College Basketball Reference for a college player just in general. And so the analytics really liked him even with his age. And then it seemed like, at least, so at San Jose State, he had like this, it was, I think the best way to call it is absurd shooting motion, where it looked like he was like launching a catapult. Like it was just so, it wasn't aesthetically pleasing in the least. And he gets the 1 year kind of redshirt or like, transfer from San Jose State to Gonzaga, and they work on him with his shot, and where it at least looks a lot better. He doesn't take a lot of long range shots or like just shots outside the paint in general. But when you're that good around the paint, I guess you don't really.
Yeah, I think with what he does, like, yeah, you want him inside. Like he's got to be inside, being aggressive. Like,
yeah, well, in college though, so that was the thing. Like in college, you want him there, but for the NBA, I think the best thing would have been to have him probably take more shots. But the thing is, he gets to the NBA, and it seems like his shot has started looking even better. He's the MVP of the Summer League Finals, and one of the best players in Summer League, like before his rookie season. And then as a rookie, he's one of the more efficient rookies, shooting 76% from the line, and then shot 36% from three. Doesn't take a ton, but it looks so much better, which is why it is so tragic to say that this year his shot looks like a catapult again. Like, I don't know what happened.
Yeah, no, right.
Yeah, like his shot just, it doesn't look the same, and it looks a lot more San Jose State-ish. And yeah, he's not shooting at that same level that he was before, which was such an anomaly and like so nice to see. But yeah, like the thing, I think the major gripes people who didn't love Brandon Clarke had were his inability to really do much. Like the fact that he was even more of a 5 than a 4. And while he is like, does have the freakish athleticism, like that fades in time. He's a smart player. So that's, I think, something that really was always going to work in his favor. But yeah, you just don't know. I think some people were worried about how much better he was going to get from where he was. And obviously, like, while we're saying he's like old by NBA, like second year standard, yeah, he, I think, is going to, I still wouldn't write him off. And I think while he's had like a bit of a rough start considering just the shooting and the efficiency compared to what he was as a rookie, where he was one of the 5 best rookies last year.
Well, his first 36 was actually like pretty much 20 and 10.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's that kind of, capability that is.
And like you were hoping that if JJJ could play the 5, like Clarke looked like a really great compliment at the 4. And I think he still does. Like, and that, I think that's still kind of the hope in Memphis. But yeah, it's just after a really promising like rookie season where he was one of the most efficient rookies and was by analytic standards even more efficient than John Morant. He definitely looks like there are a few things you need to iron out with him in terms of that shot once again, and we're just hoping that he gets back there. But yeah, not off to the start that you necessarily wanted, and not the progression that you wanted to see from Brandon Clarke as a sophomore, but still a player that I'm very confident in being at least a really good role piece. And if he's your third big, I think you're in a fantastic situation. But I think he's eventually a starting big, and just too special of an athlete, too smart of a player, and his touch around the rim has always been great. So that I think is something that's not going to fade away, even with his trouble shooting the ball.
But honestly, taking a look at him and taking a look back, and these players we talked about, it's like it's a pretty solid group for a draft. Talking about these players and what they do and what they contribute, because it's like obviously looking at the 2020 draft, it's like I don't know what kind of conversation, equivalent conversation we'd be able to have next, like this conversation next year regarding 2020.
Yeah.
So it's like you look at that, it's like, yeah, this is a pretty, is going to be a pretty good class, because you're going to see, obviously, got, John, Zion are in their own float, but I mean, yeah, RJ is probably going to get a very nice size contract, in his time.
Oh, and there will be guys from this draft who will, like, for sure. Yeah. And there will be guys from 2020 who will also.
Oh, who will for sure. But it's like, I mean, we have 10 guys today. It's like, are we going to have 10 guys from 2020 that we're like hyped about?
Well, time will tell. And yeah, like I think obviously there were a few guys here who you were maybe more confident on than some of the 2020 guys. But yeah, like I've been pretty impressed with some of the rookies in 2020 so far. I think a lot of them are in situations where they aren't necessarily like getting tons of playing time at this point. But yeah, I think in every draft you can find some really positive players. And like, remember that I said at the beginning of this, it was considered like Zion, Ja, and the other guys. Now we're still, even with all of these 10 guys, are you confident about calling any one of them a future All-Star?
No, like, I mean, I think RJ maybe has a chance, but again, like,
but you're not confident.
I don't put money on it.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Obviously, Zion and Ja for sure, but there's no one else I can, argue with you and say like, oh, for sure.
Yeah, you're not my friend Andrew Kelly, who just put money on Devontae Smith to win the Heisman on December and got a huge payday like off of that. So that was really sweet. But yeah, shout out to Devontae Smith for being like the first wide receiver in forever to win the Heisman Trophy
that's
out of Alabama. But yeah, I'm right with you where I think it's a solid draft class. I think it's a little better than people kind of expected. And the ultimate key will be these guys making having this type of production on competitive teams.
Yeah.
And I think that's where you're still kind of waiting for some of that. Like the production, the numbers look fine, like just like the raw stats, but you want them to have that on competitive teams.
You have to have the win. Yeah, because again, like it's great if you can put up 50 points a game every season, but if you're never in the playoffs, it's like no one's going to remember you as the great, as a great player.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so getting that separation.
Yeah,
so it's just getting that separation.
Yeah. So a few players that I feel like I should mention. Michael Porter Jr. Obviously, he's not part of this draft. He was
class,
but he's part of this class, and was having a really solid season. Yet again, he was great as a rookie. It looks like he's going to be a huge part of Denver's future. I guess there was something with him in COVID protocol, so he's missed the last few games. Rui Hachimura missed the start of this season, and it looks like he's at least off to a positive start. He made the all-rookie second team. Eric Pascal made the all-rookie first team, and he's that like really solid bucket getter off of the bench for Golden State, but I think you'd like him to maybe be a bit more all around as a player in general, a bit better of a defender. But yeah, as a second round pick, I think he's vastly surpassed expectations and at least has the athleticism and strength to be like a role guy in the league. And it looks like he's still getting playing time for Golden State. And yeah, I will say that the two kind of like other senior guys from that all rookie team, Kendrick Nunn has really dipped in minutes this year and dipped throughout last year. I think he had COVID-19 and then eventually went to the bubble and didn't really play a ton. He had some nice little flashes in the NBA finals, but yeah, he wasn't a guy that was moving the needle necessarily for them winning the series. But yeah, like obviously was somebody who shouldn't have gone undrafted. I think there were obviously off-court issues that factored in as well. And then Terrence Davis, who looked like he was having a solid rookie year for the Raptors, has had off-season issues, and then also like during the bubble, like poked holes in his mask and that was freaking strange. And then, you know, domestic violence charges, I guess, against him in the offseason. So he hasn't, I don't know if he's played a game for the Raptors so far.
Not a good.
Oh yeah. So he has, but yeah, his minutes are actually, yeah, they're down. So yeah, the future is murky.
Yeah.
At least.
There's a good way to get out of the league pretty quickly, and it's a couple of those, and
yeah.
Next thing.
By the way, same thing with Kendrick Nunn was it was domestic abuse, and yeah, not good.
Not.
So yeah. But yeah, those are just the sophomores that we wanted to point out and go over, the non Zion and Ja guys from the 2019 draft. Are there any sophomores that you guys like? What have you guys thought of these sophomores so far? Who do you think will be the third or fourth all-star guy from this NBA draft, or from this rookie class? I guess you can throw in Michael Porter Jr., even Bull if you wanted to.
No, so don't throw in Bull because he is part of next year's rookie class, technically. He made his debut in the bubble.
That's what you think, because I'm keeping him part of this one.
I'll give it to the benefit of the doubt. He's got till next year.
We're keeping everybody in the 2019 draft together, man. And adding Michael Porter Jr.
Yeah, and for some reason I like Porter. But yeah,
and Kendrick Nunn, I guess. Sure.
As you are feeling that we miss out on, or there's someone that we talked about that we missed something on that you want to big up, give them some props, definitely let us know. Drop us a comment. Also, you can shoot us an email, viselandpod@gmail.com. We love talking basketball. We love engaging, so definitely feel free to reach out. But if you like this, definitely go ahead. If you're on YouTube, smash the subscribe button, like smash it. Turn on the notifications so you get notified whenever a new video comes out. If you're listening to this on any of your podcast platforms, subscribe, leave us a review. That's awesome. That super helps us out as well. We definitely appreciate that. And if you want to follow us, you can follow me on Twitter. I'm at @Visenberg. Michael, you are at NBA Draft Mikey V on Twitter. You like both of us? You can follow us at Viseland. Straight up, just at Viseland on Twitter. You will get all the latest Viselandian news, and you will be set for success.
That's what we're hoping. So thank you so much for coming by this week. Like, subscribe, like everything Jason said, he finished it absolutely wonderfully, and I am now ruining it with my terrible voice. So thank you for coming by, and we will see you next week.
Next week, everybody.